So I corrected the slide now. I announced that the small group was at my house, but it said Robinson on the screen. So yes, the Visalia group will be at my house tonight for our small groups, and the Corcoran group will be at the Weatherford home. Want to mention what we're doing this next couple weeks to try to raise some money for the Manuelito Navajo Children's Home. As you know, as a congregation, we send monthly support there for years. We are totally impressed with the work they're doing in helping kids that come out of some pretty bad environments. A lot of times are abandoned, in fact, at the doorstep of this children's home there. So we've been supporting them for a long time. We want to do something special for Christmas and make sure that the kids, get some, extra gifts and things like that. And we wanted to help our Sunday school program kind of learn a little bit about that too. So this morning in their Bible class, we had some pictures in there of some of the kids that are living at the home, as well as a note about the work there. And then in the foyer, we got our gift tree there, and there's little donation cards. You can pick one up off the tree and turn in your donation to the office, and we're going to buy a whole bunch of Walmart gift cards, because there's a Walmart nearby there, and send them over to Gallup, New Mexico in time for Christmas. So if you want to be a part of that, you can get a donation card off the tree. You don't even have to take a card off, because I'm going to restock the tree with more cards for next week too. So, but anyway, if you want to donate to that, that would be a great work. But we have about 2.5 weeks or so to get that done before I got to priority mail those gifts over to the children there. Several months ago, we were dealing with here at the church building problems with our phone system. Now, it might seem kind of trivial, but here's the problem that we were having. We could call people all day long, but people couldn't call us. But not all people couldn't call us. It's very discriminatory. So we started looking into this. What is going on? Well, after trying to figure this out, it turned out that AT&T cell phone users could not call us. So then I called our current provider and said, AT&T users can't call us. What's going on? They go, well, what's the problem with AT&T? So I called AT&T. They said, what's the problem with them? So I back and forth for a long time. Finally, AT&T, after dealing with various different people that all claimed to be able to fix this problem, I finally got to a person, and here was their solution. They said, you need to have somebody who can't call into you call us, and we'll fix the problem for them. I said, well, you don't understand. You're not getting it. It's not just one person that's having this problem. It's every person that has an AT&T cell phone is not able to call us. They go, oh, no, we get that, but you need to have them call us. I said, hold up here. I said, you're not getting it. You want me, as your customer, to call one of our congregants and say, hey, by the way, we need you, since you can't normally call us, to call AT&T, and can I have your direct line? No, I don't have a direct line. So you want me to have them call you and sit on hold for 45 minutes and then deal with a problem that you're having with our phone system? They said, yes. I said, you're not getting it. That doesn't work. And so finally, back and forth, finally got it figured out, and actually, Zinni Mullins, one of our congregants, actually did wait on hold for us because we had to come up with a solution. But I found out myself saying this over and over again. You just don't get it. You don't get the problem that we're having. People can't call us. It's not on our end. It's something to do with AT&T because it's only your phone numbers. You just don't get it, do you? Have you ever said that before? You just don't get it. You're not seeing the point. You're missing the big picture. You're not understanding what this idea is all about. That phrase is actually kind of biblical. In fact, the Apostle Paul to the Corinthian church in 1 Corinthians chapter 13, there was all this debate. And we won't get into this morning, but there were spiritual gifts that they had, and they could do certain things. And there was all these arguments about what gift was better. And Paul says, look, guys, why are you even arguing about this? He goes, even if you can speak the gift of tongues and you don't have love, he says, you're like a noisy gong or a clanging cymbal. He says, you're missing the entire point of these gifts. Later on, he'll say, look, in fact, you're not even seeing the big picture. He uses ancient terminology to describe it. He says, for now we see in a mirror dimly, but then face to face. Now I know in part, then it will be fully known, just as I also have been fully known. Then he says, but now faith, hope, and love remain, and the greatest of these is love. They were missing the big picture. They just didn't get it. They thought it was all about these Holy Spirit-inspired abilities that they had, and they were missing, no. The whole point is love, and if all you're doing is arguing about who has the better gift, you're not even loving at all. They just didn't get it. Jesus does this a lot too. He had this whole illustration about foods and stuff in Matthew chapter 15, and then he finally tells them, he says, it's not what goes into the mouth that defiles a person, but what comes out of a mouth. defiles a person. They were so caught up in the Pharisees and stuff about how you ate and what you ate and if you washed your hands the right way before you ate. Jesus says, look, it's not what goes into you that defiles you, it's what comes out of you. And they all thought he was making a vomit joke or something. They still didn't get it. Jesus was talking about it's like what comes out of your heart is the real problem. They just didn't get it. Same thing happened when Jesus would go out teaching. You had teachers of the Old Testament law. And Jesus came on the scene, and he was teaching, and he was preaching, and he was prophesying and all of that. And some of the teachers, they got upset at him about what he was doing with the law, and they said, this is blasphemy. Does he think he is God? They just didn't get it. Well, in Matthew chapter 5, 6, and 7, we have a sermon recorded for us by Matthew of Jesus. It's the longest recorded sermon that we have of Jesus. We call it the Sermon on the Mount. And for the last several weeks, we've been going through section by section of this sermon because you know what? Why listen to what I have to say? Let's see what Jesus preached and we'll probably do all right. So Jesus' sermon here, the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5, 6, and 7, deals with a wide range of topics, but under the umbrella, really, of kingdom living. What it's like to live in Christ's kingdom. That's what we're supposed to be a part of, but sadly, a lot of us just don't get it, and we're going to be talking about that. But in this sermon, Jesus takes our preconceived ideas, he takes our ideas about religion, he takes our ideas about faith, and he just turns it upside down. Like, if, for example, in the beginning of Matthew chapter 5, he has all those Beatitudes. Blessed are the meek, blessed are the pure in heart, blessed are all those people. They're all not people that we normally think are blessed. We think the powerful, the wealthy, the famous, those are the blessed people. Jesus says, no, it's the persecuted. And then we went into that section last week where we talked about being salt and light to the world and how that's how we truly reflect the kingdom out there in our community. Well, what Jesus is going to do in this section of his sermon is he's going to take their view of the Old Testament and turn it on its head because they were missing the point. They just didn't get it when it came to that whole first half of our Bibles. If you're new to the Bible, maybe you've noticed this before, you kind of have two sections, an Old Testament and a New Testament. The Old Testament was all the stuff that happened up until Jesus. Primarily, it's a story of a certain family, the family of Abraham, and some of the guidelines and laws and things that God had for them. Then we have the New Testament, which is the story of Jesus and Christianity and how it spread. But the problem happened was many of the people during the time of Jesus had a warped understanding of the old law, so it caused them to even have a warped understanding of Jesus. So Jesus is going to deal with that here in this sermon. And in fact, what he's going to do, if you're taking notes, is he's going to lay out for us that the true purpose of that whole Old Testament, the law, the Torah, whatever you want to call it, was found in the kingdom. Now, seems kind of silly. Right now, my sermon is a series, and in my series, we're going to have a mini-series, okay? Preachers can do that kind of thing. But we're going to have multiple parts of how Jesus deals with the old law. The reason we're going to do that is the whole next part of this chapter is Jesus taking an Old Testament teaching and expounding on it. He's going to talk about, you have heard it said, thou shalt not kill. But I say to you, and then he talks about, you have heard it said, thou shalt not commit adultery. But I say to you. So we're going to deal with anger, adultery, murder, and those kinds of things because those are important topics that need to be talked about. But they're all underneath this umbrella of this idea that the true purpose of the old law was found in the kingdom, in the reign, person, and ministry of Jesus Christ. So let's read. Matthew chapter 5 in verse 17. He's just told everybody, be the salt of the earth, be light unto the world. And then he says this, do not think or do not assume that I have come to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Why is he saying this right here? I'm under the assumption that Jesus now, since he's been in his ministry for a while, he's preaching, he's teaching, he's giving out parables and things, and people are perplexed, and some people think that he's bringing in a new law, you might say, or that he has a lack of respect for the Old Testament. Because Jesus wasn't a Pharisee. He wasn't like a high priest. He wasn't part of the Sanhedrin. He wasn't one of these like holy men that everybody looked at as being experts on the law. He was for all intents, a normal guy, except for being the Messiah, right? I mean, he's from Galilee. He's from simple parents, from a blue-collar background, that kind of thing. You want to get even deeper, unwed teenage mom. I mean, all of that. But he's not the normal guy that would be teaching the Old Testament. And yet he's out there preaching. So many people probably had the assumption that Jesus is trying to destroy the law. How dare he teach it? He's trying to get rid of it. He's trying to abolish it. He's trying to destroy it. So Jesus says, do not think that I came to destroy it. The law and the prophets, and that's how Jewish people refer to the Old Testament. Law was the Torah, the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, and the prophets were kind of everything after. Then you also had the Psalms and that kind of idea. But law and prophets was kind of an all-encompassing term for the Old Testament. So he says, do not assume that I came to destroy it. That's not why I'm here. I did not come to destroy the law, but to fulfill it. This is a very important verse when it comes to our Bibles. Jesus brought the Old Testament to its final fulfillment, to its logical conclusion. It was accomplished through Jesus. We got to be careful with our terminology a little bit. A lot of times we go, well, Jesus did away with the old law. Kind of. Jesus fulfilled the old law. Sometimes we're kind of flippant with the old law. We're like, well, yeah, it was temporary. It got away. It's done now. No, the old law was given by God. It was beautiful. It's magnificent. It's designed to preserve God's people, the Israelites, until the time of Jesus and to teach them about the coming Messiah. I mean, think about the beauty of the Psalms and the wisdom of the Proverbs, all of that. Jesus didn't just say, see you later, old law. He didn't. But what Jesus is the conclusion of that law. So he makes this statement, but his audience is still like, what are you talking about? We thought you hated the law. So Jesus goes on again. He says, truly I say to you, unless heaven or until heaven and earth pass away, not even the smallest letter or stroke of the law will pass until all is accomplished. So as long as heaven and earth are here, we're not just getting rid of the old law. But when all is done, then all will be settled, and so on. The idea is the old law, the Old Testament, has not been destroyed. It's not like just kicked out, okay? Instead, it had a purpose. And its purpose was fulfilled, and it was explained through Jesus. Now, I know this isn't like a, okay, day to day, how does this change my life right now moment? But this is important theologically speaking, how we view the old law. The old law was not thrown out. It was fulfilled. It ran its course, and it still has function, but its primary function was to point us and prepare for Jesus, and Jesus, when he came, was the conclusion of it. He's the end of the story, and now there's the new chapter. That's kind of how we see it. And when we look at Jesus, Jesus explains to us the purpose of the law. In fact, without Jesus, a lot of times we miss the point of the old law. The Old Testament's purpose is fulfilled. It was brought to its logical conclusion in King Jesus and in his kingdom. So that's why he would say, truly I say to you that it's not going to pass away until all is accomplished. And then in verse 19, he even gets even stricter. Jesus says, therefore, whoever relaxes one of the least of these commandments and teaches others to do the same will be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Now, this is a challenge for us because we like to make everything cut and dry. We go, well, we're not under the Old Testament anymore. Jesus here says that if you even relax one of these commandments, and if you teach others to do the same, you're going to be called least. What are you saying, Jesus? Because when I read the New Testament, I don't find them, going to the temple, offering animal sacrifice anymore. I'm glad we're not doing that. Do you know what I mean? So how do we put this together? What if we're reading the commandments wrong? What if we are missing the point? I think that's what's happening here. So Jesus here says, look, I'm not here to do away with the law. I'm not here to just say, sayonara, see you later, kick it out, destroy it. In fact, I want you to be careful, because if anybody teaches people not to follow the commandments, they're going to be called least in the kingdom of heaven. Oh, okay. So the audience hears that. They're like, okay, so he's just kind of like a typical Jewish rabbi. He's telling us to follow the Old Testament commandments. And then he expounds on it more in the next part. He says, but whoever does them, whoever does the commandments and teaches them will be called great in the kingdom of heaven. Now, Jesus is about to do the biggest mic drop statement ever, okay? If you don't know what I mean, it's kind of the, oh, I got you statement, okay? I mean, it's amazing. So think about what he just did. He just said, if you want to have the kingdom of heaven, you better keep the commandments. Everybody in the audience now is hearing this going, oh, this is just another sermon about command keeping. This is just another sermon about, doing the right thing and not doing the wrong thing. Because when the audience there heard Jesus say, whoever does them and teaches them, you know where their mind would go? Their mind would go to these guys, the scribes and the Pharisees. Probably not an accurate depiction of how they actually looked. But their mind would go to them. Because the scribes and the Pharisees, they were people that knew the law, supposedly did the law, and taught others to follow it. So now you have Jesus. Oh, he's just another rabbi. He's telling us to be like the scribes and the Pharisees. He's telling us to follow the commandments just like they are. But he's not. What does he say? Verse 20, for I tell you that unless your righteousness exceeds that, goes beyond the scribes and the Pharisees, you will not enter the kingdom of heaven. Hold up, Jesus. What are you saying? You just told us that we have to keep the commandments. And then you said we have to be better than the scribes and the Pharisees. The scribes and the Pharisees were all about command keeping. That's all they did was keep commands and tell others to keep commands. How can I do better than them? Here's why. The Pharisees and the scribes didn't get it. They didn't get what the law was all about. Jesus is about to show the world what the law was actually about. It wasn't about just a bunch of commands to be kept. There was a spirit of the law that was to be fulfilled. There was a spirit of the law that is fulfilled in Jesus Christ and in his church. The Pharisees and scribes, they didn't get it. In fact, historically, the Pharisees and scribes, they took the beauty of the old law, which talks about loving God and loving others, caring for your neighbor, helping the poor. All of that is in the old law. But they took it and they twisted it and they narrowed it down to 613 commands. Google it, that's a fact, okay? They would take the old law and they said, all right, we figured it all out. There's 613 commands, some affirmative, some negative that you have to follow. They didn't get it. They were missing the point. Their idea of righteousness was keep these 613 commands and I am righteous. Jesus is going to show that these 613 commands that they claim to be keeping were not even understood. Nevertheless, not even obeyed. They thought they were obeying, but it turned out they weren't even obeying after all. They just didn't get it. Now, I don't want to spoil the next several lessons, but as you go on in this chapter, right after this, he's going to start quoting the law. He's going to quote it every time. He's going to say, you have heard it said. He's going to say something like, you have heard it said, you shall not commit murder. The Pharisees would say, I never commit murder. I keep the command. And Jesus would go, are you angry with your brother? What's the point of that command? The command is to love your brother. Then later on, he's going to say, you've heard it said, you shall not commit adultery. A Pharisee and scribe would go, I never commit adultery. Yeah, but do you lust? They missed the point. They took the beautiful Old Testament and turned it into just a bunch of commands to be kept and followed, and they weren't really getting the point. They were missing the big picture. And when Jesus comes on the scene and says, do better, he's saying, I want you to understand what it's actually all about. It's not all about do this and don't do that. It's about loving God. It's about loving others. It's about the heart. See, they took it and made it all about these externals, and they weren't actually working on changing who they were from the inside out. They just didn't get it. So what's the application for us then? Because obviously, we're not scribes and Pharisees in the first century struggling with the Old Testament and that kind of thing. What about us? How does this apply to me today? Here's one way. If you think being a Christian is nothing more than do this and don't do that, you're missing the point too. We become just like the scribes and the Pharisees when we take the beauty of God's word, maybe the beauty of the New Testament, and we turn it into kind of a checklist. Oh, I got to do this, I don't need to do this, and then I'm good. We're missing the big point. It's more than that. It's this relationship. It's deeper. It's about who we are. They took the Old Testament. The Old Testament was supposed to be that way too, but they turned it into just a bunch of commands to keep, and they missed the gist of it. Jesus is going to show how the Old Testament was supposed to be fulfilled later on in this chapter and how we even fulfill it today in the kingdom. But kingdom living is not about what you do. It's about who you are. It's easy to fix actions a lot of times. I mean, you can fake that. You can fake obedience. You can fake piety by, I fold my hands a certain way when I pray, and I always carry a Bible with me wherever I go. Whatever it is, you can kind of fake that. But it's not about what you do. It's about who you are. Christianity starts not on the outside, but it begins in here. If all we're looking at is commands to follow, we're not actually following God. That's why Jesus here, when talking about the old law, mentions, yes, obey it, yes, follow it, but do better. Do better than the scribes and the Pharisees that were never concerned about the heart, but only the hands. They weren't truly following God. Kingdom living is not just about what you do. Oh yeah, we obey, but we obey from the heart. There's a difference between obeying because we want to appear righteous, but because we are righteous. Kingdom living is not about what you do, but it's about who you are. If we don't understand that, if we don't live that out, we're missing the point. We just don't get it because it's so much more than just a bunch of commands. The lesson is yours this morning. We're going to sing a song here in just a second. Let me encourage you that if you need help in connecting yourself to God, you want to become a Christian, maybe you've never confessed Him as Lord and been baptized, and then we can do that anytime. Talk to me after services. Talk to one of us in the foyer. We'll gladly plug you into a Bible study. If you have questions, if you have prayer requests, let that be made known. In fact, I'll stand up front here for a couple verses of the song too if anybody needs to come down front, maybe has a prayer request or anything. But right now, let's all stand and let's sing the song that was selected.